Hey guys, welcome to the February installment of Our Mixed Media Moods, the monthly challenge between Deedee Catron and myself, where we create a mood board and then create projects based on that mood board. So this is the project I made for this month. It's a little mini journal, and I'm starting out by taking some loose papers by Dina Wakely. They're like the papers that are in her journal, and she just came out with the loose ones, and the white is a cotton rag watercolor paper, and the brown one is a craft. So I want my pages to be 4 by 4, so I cut them 8 inches long by 4 inches, and then I'm just going to score them at 4 inches. And it's a really tiny book, so I only have, it's going to be one signature, and it's going to be 8 pages. And the cover is from a cardboard box. So I'm kind of trying to measure so that I have at least 1/4 of an inch around each edge of my paper, but it really doesn't matter because it's going to be hard to precisely cut the box. So I'm just going to do my best to try to make sure there's space all around my pages. And then I'm just going to slice it down the middle because my binding is going to be made of dyed fabric. The mood board has this picture of like gray dyed fabric in the upper right hand corner, and that's what inspired this journal. I wanted to make some fabric like that, and then I decided to use it as my binding in this book. So now I'm just going to start distressing my covers by ripping the papers off so you can see the corrugated part of the cardboard. And I do the same to the back. And this is a piece of glossy cardstock that I put distress ink on, and I'm stamping with a Viva Las Vegas stamp, and then I'm going to cut that down so that it fits nicely on my cover. I know I want to layer like a whole bunch of brownish kind of vintagey items, so this is going to be the smallest piece because it's going to be like the top piece. And I'm just going to distress that a little more by stamping some more Viva Las Vegas stamps with distress ink and matching colors, like the colors that matched what was going on in the cardstock. And then these stamps are by Darkroom Door, and they're just kind of like grungy lines, dashes, and I'm just going to add those on as well for a little more interest. Now I'm just going to play around with my layers. I started out with some of that gray fabric that looks like the picture, but then I decided I wanted more contrast, so I went with muslin, clear muslin, or clear, undyed muslin. And then this is some resin, music paper, and I'm just going to stamp that up a little. And I'm stamping with archival ink because it's a slick surface and I don't want it to like rub off. And I'm just going to mess around with some more layers. That's just like a piece of a brown paper bag that doesn't actually make it onto the finished cover, but this is just the part where I go back and forth and see what I like. This is a little stamp. And then I have a skinny strip of resin paper and this tiny piece of fabric that I plan to stitch through. And now I'm just going to adhere everything down kind of loosely because I'm going to stitch around the cover before it actually goes onto the cardboard. So I'm putting just a little bit of adhesive because I don't want to gum up my sewing machine needle with adhesive. So then I ran it through my sewing machine, and then I also stitched that little fabric piece into like a little a little something over there. So now I'm going to distress my cover some more with some gesso and some Dina Wakley media in the color Sky, because the mood board has like this robin's egg blue in one of the photos that I wanted to use as like the color pop for my project. So I'm just using a really dry brush and dry brushing the gesso all around the edges, around the cardboard, and catching it on the pieces of paper that like stick up from the cover. Now I'm going in with that blue, just some light touches. Now I'm going to stick that down with some tacky glue. Wait, maybe not yet. I'm going to adhere the little fabric strip and that strip of resin paper with some tacky glue. And then I have a word from the Tim Holtz clipping stickers. It says Diary of Events. And I just edged that with some black ink to make it stand out a little bit more. I contemplated putting a button on there or something, but I decided to just leave it plain. Oh no, I didn't glue the whole thing on yet. Okay, so now I'm going to glue the whole thing on with a whole bunch of tacky glue. A lot of tacky glue because I want it to stay really well. So I'm going to use this piece of muslin to sew my signatures into and attach to my book. So I'm just making sure everything fits, and I'm doing like the most simple binding ever. I'm just poking 2 holes through my signature and through the muslin, and then I'm using embroidery like DMC floss and just sticking it through the front and then up through the back, and then tying it in a really tight knot in the middle. It's the simplest binding I know. It was probably the only binding I know. But now I'm going to glue the edges of the muslin to the cardboard pieces, and in retrospect, I shouldn't have done this yet because I want to add that piece of like gray fabric, but I was kind of making it up as I went. I should have probably put a little more thought into how I was going to do it, but the glue didn't dry, so I was able to take it up without messing anything up. But I'm trying to leave a lot of space between the covers. Oh, here is that piece of dyed fabric, and I just ran it through my sewing machine so it kind of like got bunched up. And now I had to take that glue up, and I'm going to glue the edges of that gray piece down and then glue the muslin on top of that. And like I said, I'm making sure I have a lot of space between the covers because I want this book to be really chunky and thick, and I want to be able to use like a lot of thick embellishments and stuff like that, and I don't want it to get like funky looking, so I'm making sure that there's a lot of space so that I can add a lot of stuff. And that is my finished book. If you have any questions, please let me know. I did go through it kind of fast, and I added some vintage papers to the front and back inside cover so you couldn't see the muslin. And here are some still photos of my project. Be sure to check out Deedee's project, which will be linked below, and we'd love if you joined us over at our Facebook group if you are so inclined. And thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.